All right, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Brian Tague, and today we're joined by someone who keeps the financial engine of a property management company running at high level. Ryan Harrison, Director of Financial Operations at Housing Hub in Minnesota. Ryan manages everything from owner statements to accounting systems, cash flow, and financial reporting, providing the clarity and structure that help investors and property owners make informed decisions about their portfolios. Ryan, so good to have you here, so let's dive in.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, I'm excited. My first time doing a podcast, so this will be a learning curve for me, but I'm excited for it.
No, it's easy. Just be yourself. And we want to hear about Housing Hub. Like, I know you're doing amazing things. You guys have an awesome company there in Minnesota. So give us a background, an elevator pitch of who you guys are, what you do, number of doors, kind of your sales pitch, so to speak, just so the listeners can get a better understanding of what Housing Hub is.
At a super high level, both of the owners of Housing Hub grew up in St. Paul, so they know the area. They've spent their whole lives here, and they lived a street apart from each other their whole lives and didn't know it until they crossed paths. Tom owned a landscaping business, and Joe, I believe, owned a duplex at the time, and they intertwined and they started buying real estate together, and their portfolio got large enough to the point where in 2013 they founded Housing Hub to manage their portfolio. Um, so the business that Tom and Joe bring in, the stuff that they own, that's a relatively large share of our company, probably 35% of the portfolio. And then we started bringing on other third party owners from there. So I think what's special about Housing Hub is, we look at things through the eyes of ownership. And I think that's a little bit unique because a lot of the times if you go to a PM that manages 5, 10, 15,000 units, you're dealing with people that are very systematized and often aren't flexible and willing to adapt. And that's kind of our niche. We try to roll with the punches as they come. Legislature and tax and rent control is a big thing in St. Paul. So we have to be willing to change quickly and take a risk. And the benefit that we bring is Tom and Joe. We can test these new things on their portfolio without putting our clients at risk. Yeah.
Love that. And there's so much something special about that aspect of it, because that's what you essentially, for lack of better words, is you guys built this property management company around their portfolio, right? And there's not a better model to practice what you preach, the cliche, because you guys are doing it. And obviously, you're not just running a business or have these theories that you can run this property management company and we'll do this and we'll do that. No, you have quote unquote skin in the game because of their portfolio. So I would imagine they're doing what's best for them. They're doing what's the best strategy, the best investments, the best technology and operations and communication to not only help their bottom line, but also make it a pleasant experience for the employees at the company at Housing Hub, but also the tenants. And why not just rinse and repeat and duplicate what they've already done for them? That's the perfect model, in my opinion. And I think it's brilliant what they've done to just duplicate it onto other homeowners rather than a property management company who doesn't own a single property and the electrical outlet in the bathroom stops working. So what do? You call $150 service charge to get an electrician out there to go press the GFCI reset button. Like that's garbage. But when you actually have some knowledge and experience to build the model, I think that's absolutely, brilliant, and to have that much share in the company. So where do you fit into all this? Let's back up before you even answer that question. I mean, you're a young guy, hard charger. I know you're a backbone for the company. This is this amazing company. But what got you into property management? Are you from St. Paul as well? And like, what do you think was uh, milestone in your life that kind of piqued your interest in property management? Because I always like to hear where people came from.
Well, I guess I'll start from school. I grew up in a suburb about 20 minutes south of the Twin Cities, so I'm not from St. Paul, but I have lived in the cities now coming up on 3 years. I am a St. Paul resident, so I can see some of the changes that we're trying to make and that we have made in the past. Um, from there, I went to St. John's University. It's a smaller private school near St. Cloud, Minnesota. I played lacrosse there. I managed the coffee shop. I had a small little clothing business. We did, I think, 30K in revenue my senior year, so that was fun. Then post grad, I tore 3 ligaments in my left knee while skiing. I'm still big into skiing. They're in the back seat right now. We're gonna get 6 inches this afternoon, so I'm heading to the hill. But anyways, post grad, that happened. Tore my knee up. That was a year of PT. I had a part-time job while I was in PT, and then I started looking for something more serious. So while at St. John's, I had all of those other experiences outside of the classroom, and I think that helped with just communication, being personable, understanding different perspectives. And then the schooling side, I studied economics. Um, Economics to me is a dressed up general business degree. So it's not, not deep accounting, but we are performing analysis and looking at both the smaller and larger picture and looking forward based on, what we have in the past. So to answer your question, I wanted to get into finance, but I didn't want to just be another pin on the wheel. So I knew I wanted to work for a smaller company. At the time, Housing Hub was managing for a finance manager role. So I interviewed. I met with the COO, excuse me, Ben Herding, um, and then it went from there. So I was in my role as finance manager for 2 years. April of 2025, just this year, is when I made that jump to director of financial operations. So now my role has pivoted a little bit more to looking at how the business performs, the different areas of our company, how they're performing within themselves, looking for additional revenue streams. We're actually rolling out something pretty exciting for both tenants, property owners, and the company in terms of revenue at the start of 2026. So it's been it's been a good journey. Property management is a crazy, crazy business this time of year, and finance and ops and everything is crazy busy. So it's nice to kind of take a beat and just
Nice. So there's a couple things there where it sounds like you're the perfect guy for this position, and whether you've even stopped pause because you're hard charging in this growing company. But what I'm hearing is it started almost with your sports. Like if you're a competitive lacrosse player, you know what it's like to grind and to adapt and overcome, to be committed and to wake up on those early mornings or those late nights and just push, 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 push through pain. So I think it all starts with that aspect of it. And then your clothing business, every entrepreneur knows it's not easy. You don't wake up being an entrepreneur. You've got to continue to grind and continue to problem solve and continue to have different skill sets within that aspect of it, which it sounded like you touched on and you did clearly very well. If you were a student and still doing 30K, like that's impressive on a startup clothing company, which is very, very cutthroat, which some low margins. So congrats on that. So that right there is a great entity. Not and then sprinkle on a little bit of college degree and some experience in business/economics. why not? Housing Hub's growing. Why not hire you to take the role, test you out in a position, and then promote you to essentially what I'm hearing as a business development guy, right? You can call you whatever you want, director of this and that, but it sounds like your job now is to find where can Housing Hub have a much larger bottom line as well. And you can, apply all those aspects. And when the snow's good, you can throw in some skiing as well. So why not? No, I think that's cool. And that's to me, what I find fascinating about talking to people is I like making those connections. And again, I could be totally wrong, but is everybody's so focused on living their life. But when you can sit back and like, I wonder, and I'll stop people in their tracks for minutes, like, what did actually get me here? Like, to me, it's very clear on where you're at now. But the bigger question is, where are you going? Right. So that's a rhetorical question, but with this growth and your position, like, what are your aspirations? I guess professionally and personally, right? Housing Hub's an amazing pillar there in Minnesota and St. Paul. What are your aspirations for you personally and professionally? Because that's the foundation that can help, propel you and them.
I'm 26, coming up on 27 in May. I've been seeing someone for, what's the date today? Just a little under 2 years. In a couple of weeks, it'll be 2 years. So that's going really well. She's great. I want a family someday. So that's something that I have in mind. Um, I think I'll stay in the Twin Cities, honestly. All my family is here. I've got a couple of close buddies from high school that I'm still in contact with. And apart from that, all of my connections and relationships, both college and professionally, are here. And I like Minnesota. There's diversity in seasons, which I enjoy. I played hockey growing up, skied growing up, played lacrosse growing up. So I think I'll be here unless, something happens, then I'm elsewhere. But
Hold on, Ryan. So before we go into what I wanted to hear and you didn't answer it, and I'm just going to now plant this seed, just as me to you, you are surrounded by very successful and smart people at Housing Hub, right? The founders are awesome, and they started and they invested. What you didn't say, and this is just me questioning you in the nicest way possible, why not start investing yourself? Why not add properties to the portfolio? Why not have that addiction and that drive? Yes, help Housing Hub and continue to grow, but why not buy properties yourself, dump them into Housing Hub and for the management side of it? Like, you're surrounded by these amazingly great leaders and mentors in your life personally. People pay tons of money for leadership and guidance. Why not tap into that? That was the answer I was curious on.
so professionally, um, owning properties, it's in the pipeline. Not there yet. College wasn't cheap, so focusing on that income to debt ratio at the moment. Trying to get some of those good old student loans paid down. Um, but otherwise, you're right. I mean, I'm surrounded by great people who know what they're doing, and I've seen it. It works. Um, and you look up to people who you aspire to be like. You're not taking feedback from someone you don't respect. That sort of thought process. So the owners of the company are that for me. I admire the lives they have, what they've done for myself, the rest of the company, all of our employees. Um, so honestly, as of right now, I see myself sticking with Housing Hub. Um, one, for the growth potential, two, for the relationships, and three, being what you mentioned, just the proximity to those people.
Amazing leaders. Yeah, your founders are absolutely amazing guys. So, capitalize and have those. I don't know your full relationship with them, but have those. Yes, it's investing in real estate is a scary space, but I would have some, closed door meetings with them and talk to them and say, guys, this is my goals. I want to do X, Y, and Z. Like, what are your thoughts? And there are many ways to creatively also get into real estate, but you've not only have the leaders, but you have the foundation with Housing Hub built to manage. So it's not just saving up a bunch of money and putting 25% down and buying a rental property or this or that. And I get you have student debt, but figure out a way to have this synergistic way of working towards your goals. And I don't want to turn this into a lecture by any means, but I just love young people who are surrounded by the right people that aren't capitalized. I want you to capitalize on it, and that you're in a great spot from an outsider looking in, to be able to just get creative and do it now, man. Ryan, when once you get married and once you have kids in that family, you have no idea what you're up against in a great, great, great way. But if you can build your foundation now, man, you'll look back and be like, remember that idiot on the podcast? Man, I'm glad I listened to him, right? But you've got great leaders there at Housing Hub. So that's my only 2 cents before we move on to that. Is there's good ways, and I've bought and sold businesses, I've done startups, and I own a huge portfolio myself. So like now is your time. Like every day, every hour matters. To get into that and lean on your mentors is my thought. So, okay. So professionally, where do you want to take this company? It's not your company, but like, what are you seeing? Cause we all know property management's a relatively archaic, boring, stale industry that hasn't changed. There hasn't been a disruptor in property management for decades, right? There's been little refinements here and there. Are you looking to make a big splash, or are you looking to go deep with changes, or are you looking to go vertical with horizontal with ancillaries and other revenue streams? Do you have an idea of where you want to take this?
And to your previous point, before we switch over quick, uh, the owners, we have
Yeah.
had those one-on-one sit downs, and there are channels that they have actually they've brought to my attention, um, to gain some of that ownership in future investments that they go after. And the nice part about that is I'm running the numbers for them on these purchases. So, you know, if it's too skinny, it's too skinny, and we move on, and that's that.
No, it's awesome. That's exactly the stuff that don't slow down on that, right? In my opinion, now is the time to figure out your debt and move forward with investments. These are your years to make that pivot and change. And again, you can go partner up with any syndication deal or with any, limited partnership, whatever, but you have these guys, these amazing leaders that if they're willing to invest with you, you've already have that trust. They're not a nobody, right? So that gets you at least in the door to start your career on that. So anyway, I'm passionate about investing in real estate and property management. I've bought and sold 2 property management companies over the year, and you have a great place to enable yourself, which is cool.
Yeah, for sure. So to touch on that, um, horizontal ancillary revenue streams versus, trying to break through the ice and see what's on the other side. Um, we're doing both, honestly. I mentioned something that we're rolling out on January 1st. It's a tenant insurance package
Nice.
that
So
yep
smart.
that we earn some revenue on. We are looking at acquiring another management company. I mean, there's been a couple previous contenders that we didn't love. So we're keeping those on our radar as well. And then just natural growth. Maybe natural is not the right word. I'm not a marketing guy, but what marketing brings in, what our current relationships bring in. Um, I don't think I've been here for coming up on my 4th year in April. When I started with the company, we were at 1,500 doors. And now we are approaching 2,300. So we're
Nice.
growing at a good
Great
we're
growth.
growing at a good tick. Um, but we're also looking for those areas to make the industry better. So on top of that insurance, we're looking at tenant benefit packages, things that make living with Housing Hub more attractive because, there's no industry without a tenant at the end of the day. So we're trying to consider what tenants want, what they're getting right now that we're not offering, what we could offer that no one else is. That's all on the agenda, and it's a lot to juggle. But Joe, one of the owners, he's our CEO. Tom, the other owner, he's our CFO. Joe is very good at focusing on what needs to happen in a given moment. So right now, for example, we have this rollout coming in a few weeks. That's what we're focused on. Once that's set in place, everyone's educated, everyone's trained. Then we move on to the next. And while all of this is happening, they're still buying real estate. So it's a whole web of connections. They own 12, 13 laundromats on top of that. So there's always a ton going on here, and it's a really exciting environment. But I also get the space to look for those other ancillary streams that you were talking about. So
We're the profit pillars and diversity, and it's all spreading the risk out. So back to the management side, are you primarily, of those 2,300 doors, are you primarily single family homes? Do you have small apartments, large apartments, commercial, HOAs? Like what is the business, without getting too detailed, but what's the business model kind of look like?
it's all the above, actually. We have single families. I believe the largest apartment complex we manage is a little under 100 units. We've got a new HOA coming on board, 45 unit start of the year. So we've got not a ton of HOAs. They're typically more straightforward. They like a budget prepared. They like feedback. They like to approve things.
And the HOA numbers, are those part of the 2,300 doors you're counting?
Good question. They are.
Okay, got it. And then how many employees do you guys have there in the US? And then have you guys ventured out into structure with virtuals?
Yeah, we have 38 W-2 employees. Some of the showing assistants or door openers, whatever you call them, they are 1099 paid by our agents. So we pay our agents. We have a broker in-house. Um, we have an attorney in-house. I am one of three in our finance department. So we've got myself, Matthias, who is our analyst, and then we've always got an intern on rotation. We're structured a little bit differently, I would say, than other management companies. We're
Yeah.
we're built compartmentalized, so we don't necessarily have the overhead that another management company might, where there's one PM responsible for everything at a property. Our structure is you're a leasing agent, you have a portfolio, you manage the listings, and you work with the owners of the property. And then we have the whole back end that I was touching on: finance, legal, broker, delinquencies, marketing, um, development of, the company. Just we have someone looking for growth. So to touch on that a little bit more, we are in the VA field. Um, I'm trying to think of some names here that we're using right now. Better Than Rich is one of them. I'm blanking on the other VA names, but
And I was just curious. So I wanted to talk. So interesting, because you're right. You are structured differently than a lot of property management. So you'll essentially have whatever you call the title, but a manager of almost a mini subset or a mini portfolio. And that manager will manage, I guess it all depends on whether they're apartments or single families, but they'll manage 100, 200, 300 homes whatever the number is, right? Is that accurate? And it's almost from the beginning to the end. So you'll have a client acquisition team who does acquisitions. Then once maybe the lease is signed, then that person then will take over and do landlord communications, do property turns, do PMs, project management stuff to get the tenant ready, maybe the showings, or you sub that out to, you said you have agents, and then you get the tenant in there, their liaison now with the tenants and the owners. Is that, and then maybe like a maintenance team in a way. Is that kind of accurate?
A company with three primary pillars, I would say. So we have leasing.
Yep.
So it's broker, leasing agents, showing assistants who also do our move in, move out inspections. Then we have our administrative staff, which myself, the attorney, our other finance guys, delinquencies, marketing, all that jazz. That's admin. And then the maintenance side of things, we do unit turns, we do full rehabs, we do quick turns, really anything under the sun. We've also got our general contractor's license, so that is an add-on for our clients as well. Yeah, so the agent would be responsible for finding the tenant. The tenant moves in. We then have a VA whose title is tenant coordinator. He deals with all the day-to-day nitty-gritty stuff. Once the tenant moves in, our broker reviews the lease before the tenant moves in, so that's fully executed. Tenant moves in, I pay the agent pays the showing assistant. So that's sort of how that pipeline works. So once the agent gets paid, they have a network behind them to support the rest of it, lease renewals, legal stuff, maintenance, whatever it is. So the agent's primary goal is really to fill vacant units.
Wow. That's a cool model, and that is unique and that's different. And I imagine though a lot of that was initially built because of the percentage ownership of your two owners and their properties, and then it was just kind of org chart structured to be beneficial, and then you can rinse and repeat. That's the most cost effective way. I like that. That's neat. And it would be hard for any business, listening to this to transition into that model, because you would have to
Yeah.
really burn it down to rebuild it.
Yeah.
But I like the direction you've gone, and I appreciate you sharing that. So another reason
Yep.
why, Housing Hub is a, leading entity there in the Twin Cities and in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I appreciate you, Ryan, for being on the show and sharing. I think you and the company have just amazing, direction and places to go, especially with your growth and the leadership there. Where, if somebody's listening here and they're interested, if they're a boomer and they're interested in selling their property management company, or if they're a property owner and they're like, man, I got to latch on to these guys so they can manage my property, or they're a person who wants a job just because they want to work with good people, good culture. Where can somebody find more information out about Housing Hub and how great you guys are?
Yeah, good question. Our website is housinghubmn.com, as in Minnesota or Mary Nancy. You can find their owner information. If you're a tenant, that's how you access your portal. Same goes with ownership. Job postings can be found there. Our office phone number is listed there. So that's really your go-to place. I don't think I'm going to give my email out on a podcast because I'm swamped as it is.
I dare
But
you, Ryan. I dare you.
yeah,
No, this is awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show. Let's stay in touch. I want to hear where you guys go and how you
yeah,
grow and what you're doing. And I'm always a resource too, if you ever just need to talk business or have just random neat third party ideas. I've been there, done that, and happy to give opinions anytime, just connecting with good people. So that goes for you and your two owners there. So I appreciate your time coming on here. Be safe out there on the slopes today. If you make it, drive safe in the snow, and let's stay in touch.
yep. Yeah, will do. Great to meet you, Brian. Good talk. And yeah, we should definitely stay in touch in the future.
All right. Take care. Have a good one.
All right. You too. Bye.